Bonjour, I am Helen Timperly from the University of Auckland, where I teach and do research on education. Professional development used to be when teachers went on a course or a workshop and someone told them about some better teaching practices. But we have changed now to realise that doesn't work for teachers, and we now call it professional learning, where teachers are very focused on how to improve outcomes for their students. It may be social outcomes, maybe personal outcomes, maybe academic outcomes. And the professional learning usually takes place over a long period of time as the teachers learn how to change their practice to improve outcomes for their students. Teacher training was what we used to do. Someone would decide, inspectors or the ministry, that teachers needed to learn something new about teaching. So they would send them on a course outside of school or take them to a workshop and show them how to do the new teaching practices. We find that does not work because teachers need to find out how to do that in their classrooms with their students and what's most important to make a difference for their students. So professional learning is what happens in school, in classrooms in schools, as teachers try new ideas. They are very important because research is coming up with many new ideas about how to teach students better. But they are helped to do that in their classrooms and in the school rather than outside. In efficient professional development. That's very interesting because most people think of efficient professional development meaning it doesn't cost much money and doesn't take much time. Unfortunately, most professional development that results in better outcomes for students takes quite a lot of money and quite long periods of time, because teachers need to be supported to find out what's happening for their students, to observe their students, to assess their students, and then to use that to learn how to teach them differently. And that takes place over many cycles of investigating, trying something new, evaluating, trying something different. As a teacher, the first thing is to be able to assess your students very carefully so that you know exactly what they know, what they don't know, and to have some idea of what they need to learn. And that is probably the most challenging part. If you can do that as a teacher, then you can seek the knowledge you need to improve for the students. But until you know exactly what is happening for each of your students, and as I mentioned before, both socially for them and personally, and whether they are just academically engaged. By that I mean just go through the motions of learning rather than intellectually engage where they're seeking information. To find out those things about your students and then to get the professional help to meet those students' needs, all the students in your class. And that is very challenging. It is too hard to just work alone with your students to improve. You can only draw on what you already know, and you need the help and support of your colleagues. Because everyone knows something different. Everyone has tried the same things. Some will be more successful than others. So you need to work with your colleagues in teams. One of the findings from research is that teachers learn a lot more when they work in teams and take collective responsibility for the students than if they just work by themselves in their classrooms.
Yes.
What are you supposed to be doing? And small groups of students, every student could tell us whether they were doing it or not doing it. But then we asked them, what are you learning about, say, writing? Learning to improve, learning how to improve your writing while you're doing this. And we found that most students did not know. They knew what they were doing, but they didn't know what they were learning about writing or about reading when they were doing that. And then we'd ask them, what does a really good piece of writing of this kind look like? So did they know what the goal was? And again, most students did not know. And we also asked, what does your teacher tell you to work on in your writing? And they were very vague about that. So and then we fed those results back to the teachers and said, your students know what they are supposed to be doing, all of them, but they do not know what they are supposed to be learning when they're doing that. And we discussed with the teachers, why would that be? And that probably led to more changes in practice than anything I have ever written. That you must develop what works in France for you, but using some of the principles that we know work for teachers and students. So one of those principles is always start with the students and always end with the students. So you don't evaluate something by a measure that's not related to students. So that you would need to translate that into your context. And another principle, I guess, is evaluation, that everything that teachers or leaders, if they change what they're doing, that they have the skills, not someone outside, but they have the skills to know if it's more effective than what they were doing before for their students. So often we have someone come in and say, you should do this, and the evaluation is left to that person or someone external. But it is the teachers and the leaders and the students who need to know if it's working. So not someone from outside. So to have the skills for teachers to do those things. So to work, I would say my advice to you is take the key principles of professional learning and work out how you can use those in your system to create a powerful professional learning environment.